On January 20th, 2025, President-elect Donald Trump was inaugurated as the President of the United States. Now, unlike previous U.S. presidential inaugurations, Trump decided to break tradition and invite several leaders from foreign countries. Usually, presidential inaugurations in the U.S. are usually a domestic affair. However, despite the number of foreign leaders at Trump's inauguration, many were surprised that not one African leader was invited. The absence of African leaders speaks a profound message, which is that Trump doesn't regard African leaders. But Trump has recently explained the reason for his decision. In this video, we are going to analyze Trump's reasons and what African leaders should take from it. As the day to Trump's inauguration approached, many African leaders, including Nigeria and Mozambique, expressed interest in attending the event. This was confirmed by an article published by the New York Post on January 11, 2025, under the headline, "Foreign Leaders Desperately Jockeying for Invite to Trump's Inauguration. They Are Going Crazy." A registered foreign agent was quoted as saying, "They are all going crazy. Chile, Peru, Nigeria, Mozambique." The agent added that the leaders were champing at the bit to attend. Unfortunately, none of them were invited. Those invited include Argentina's President Javier Milei, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, and even Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, we know that Trump doesn't regard Africa. He made that very clear during his first term as president. In 2018, he referred to African countries in derogatory terms and didn't develop any relationship with Africa. Right now, Trump's attitude has not changed regarding Africa. He still doesn't regard the continent just like most Western leaders. However, there is something important that Trump has said that African leaders need to examine critically. He said, "If after 50 years of independence you have not built the necessary infrastructure for your people, are you human? If you sit on gold, diamonds, oil, uranium, iron, copper, silver, magnesium, crude oil, and gas, if your people die of hunger, without health and with nothing to live on, with terrible education, do you feel human? If you stay in power, you buy weapons abroad to kill your own citizens, are you human? If you despise and shoot your own citizens like nothing, who will respect them? If you become a thief in your own country, stealing resources destined for your country, while most of your brothers are starving, miserable, and living poorly, is that being human?" Now, we can rage at Trump and call him out for being a racist, but these statements and questions are valid and fact. There is no doubt that the West has pillaged the conflict and African resources were used to build the West. But the truth is that African leaders collaborated with the West to make the continent this way. Take a look at history, and you will see numerous accounts of African leaders who worked with the West to destabilize their countries and exploit their countries' resources. Till today, we see African leaders being puppets of the West with no shame. The question is, are these leaders happy with the current state of African development? When they travel to the West for meetings, aren't they motivated to replicate the development they see outside? You see, just like Trump, Western people disregard Africans. They associate Africans with poverty, disease, and inequality. This negative image and disrespect are all thanks to African leaders. As President Trump asked, "If you despise and shoot your own citizens like nothing, who will respect them?" Most African leaders are weak and unpatriotic. They are selfish and only think about their belly. They are not ambitious. They do not have grand plans for industrialization, innovation, and technology. If they did, there would be a lot of difference in their dealings with the West. Most African leaders and African politicians are corrupt. They bleed money from the economy and redirect funds meant for developmental projects into their personal accounts. Most times these accounts are set up in the West, and we have heard cases where the funds are seized by the foreign government. The situation of things is bad, which is why some Africans are no longer patriotic. They cannot fully defend their countries. The young ones are looking for opportunities to flee to the West. Some of them even follow dangerous routes and end up dying in the process. So yes, the West exploited and is still exploiting the continent. But we cannot close our eyes to the contributions of Africa's unpatriotic and weak leaders. The most annoying thing is that these leaders are very good at talking and lamenting the state of the continent, forgetting their role in it. The truth is that things will not change unless African leaders do better. The West will continue to disrespect and disregard the continent unless African leaders show some backbone. Take a look at Trump, for example. He is certainly not a weak leader. Trump has launched an agenda known as American First, and he has started implementing visible policies in this regard. Most countries might be affected by some of his policies, but Trump doesn't care. He is all about America. He is a strong leader doing what he believes is best for his people. The same thing can be said about the president of China and Russia's president. These leaders do not have two heads. Despite Western exploitation, Africa will only get better if African leaders stand against it. And they can. The three military leaders of the Sahel countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, are doing it. These leaders have been described by some Western politicians as sophisticated. Since they came into power, they have exhibited a level of patriotism and love for their country. These leaders have done far better than those so-called weak democratic leaders who are only interested in their bellies. Just imagine that the president of Nigeria was among those jockeying to attend Trump's inauguration. What a shame. Nigeria is experiencing one of the worst hardships since independence. Things are hard for the citizens. Inflation has gone ridiculously high. The currency is weak, and the country continues to depend on oil. Instead of President Tinubu figuring out how to improve the economy, his focus was on how to attend Trump's inauguration. So pathetic. We would have said that Africa's situation is dire, if not for the fact that we now have African leaders like Burkina Faso Traoré. We can all agree that President Traoré is an exemplary, disciplined, and patriotic leader. Just like every strong leader, he has been doing what he knows is right for his country. Western media can call him a dictator, but Traoré is exactly what Burkina Faso needs currently. Unlike other African leaders, Traoré has a vision. The same vision that was established by Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara was a passionate African leader who desired to see Burkina Faso free from the shackles of the West. This was his vision, which he voiced out aloud and stood by. It's no wonder he was hated by the West. But he was a strong leader. French President François Mitterrand once called Sankara a difficult character after a discussion with him. The Western world, especially France, did not like him for several reasons. First, Sankara made it clear in speeches and interviews that Burkina Faso would no longer follow orders from Paris, Washington, or other Western capitals. Secondly, he stated that Burkina Faso would assert its sovereignty by establishing relations with all nations in the world, including those hostile to the West, such as Cuba, China, North Korea, and the Soviet Union. Thirdly, Sankara said Burkina Faso would stand in solidarity with, and sometimes directly support, oppressed peoples and liberation movements around the world, in line with revolutionary ideals. Fourth, Burkina Faso would promote true Pan-African unity, expressed through concrete actions by African governments and peoples, not just occasional statements. Sankara stood by his words and was able to achieve food self-sufficiency without the help of the West. Unfortunately, he was killed by France with the help of Blaise Compaoré, his friend who turned out to be another African leader. You can clearly see how African leaders work with the West to jeopardize their countries. Imagine if Blaise Compaoré had stood with Sankara and rejected the greed of power. Sankara would have lived long enough to truly transform Burkina Faso. The worst part is that after Blaise took over power, he couldn't even continue to implement the policies that Sankara pursued. He reversed everything and became a French puppet. Africans are indeed the problems of Africa. However, leaders like Ibrahim Traoré have given us hope. Traoré's decision to resist the West and make good decisions is a clear indication that every African leader can do the same if they want to. If African leaders want to be relevant on the global stage, they have to show that they are not weak. They have to make tough decisions for the benefit of their country. If not, the West will continue to ride on them. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, and share.